Hi, it's Nicole again, and I am here with Michael Gallagher, who is the head of our agriculture team. Back to the very beginning, we started with 160 acres of jungle and a river that we needed to get across. And tell us a little bit about that. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, it began just like you said with 160 acres of jungle, thick forest, like green forest in Africa that anybody that hasn't been there would be hard to picture, right? It's just lush green. It took time, but here we are today with at least 60 acres of palm now planted on that 160 acres and at least 45 acres of cocoa planted on that 160 acres. And so there's 105 acres of the 160 that was complete jungle that now is actual growing crops.
So what are all the things that are grown on the farm?
Yeah, so we still have some rice production, which they primarily feed their families and themselves with. So it isn't necessarily sold. But the crops that are sold for a revenue is palm, cocoa. There's still some plantain left, which is a fast-growing tree, and then it slowly dies, but it provides some production in the meantime while the palm and cocoa are growing. But then we also have some small crops like okra, bitterball, just a lot of other things. They've grown some corn here and there that they can sell in the market. But those are primarily the main crops that are growing at this time.
What about livestock?
Livestock. We have quite a herd of goats. I think they're just under 100 head of goats at this point. So that includes quite a few females, a few bucks, and then a lot of little ones running around. And then the hogs are an area that we want to grow in, and we see that as a great opportunity in the future, but we just at this time kind of step back from the hogs. They still have a few on the farm, but we've stepped back and said we want to do that well, but we aren't going to be able to focus on it at this time. But they're still there.
So what do you see happening on the farm in the next 5 years? Where are we going?
What's really fun is when I talked to Emmanuel, even just recently, he said, I always go to the farm and I'm never discouraged when I leave the farm. And I think that's really true because there's so much potential and so much opportunity down the road that we have to look forward to. It's just taken a long time to get there. And so I would say over the next 5 years, we get to look at our biggest production that we'll ever have probably in the palm crop in the next 5 years. We'll have our biggest production in cocoa as well. These are tree crops that grow for 20 to 25 years, but their peak production is reached from year 5 to year 10, and that's right where we'll be getting into. And so we'll really get to see what kind of production can we raise in Liberia on this farm. And so we look forward to seeing that part of it as far as from a production standpoint. But even more so, we've said from day one that we want this to be a sustainable farm, but more importantly, we want this to be a farm that's changing hearts and lives and changing people and building relationships. And so I think one of the biggest things that has come away from the farm the last couple even months and last couple of years has been the start of a church family right there on the Harbell farm. And so I hope that even as we look ahead in the next 5 years, we see a church building that's been planted there, right there on the farm, and their group of people that are meeting, that's only 100 or 150. I say only, that's a big group. But I hope that it's even bigger than that and that we're able to bring even more workers in because there's going to be so much more work and hopefully they can grow not only in having a job, but more importantly to grow in a deeper relationship with Christ by growing there with the church on the farm.
So what do you need to make that happen? What does the agriculture team need next?
Well, with more production takes a lot of needs, unfortunately. And so we can see that the production can be there. We still dream and hope of what it actually could be. And the reality is it could be quite large. There was an advisor that actually stopped by the farm here in the last month and told Emmanuel, you need to start dreaming bigger. You need bigger. You need bigger. And it's so hard to be there and say, well, it's hard to make that investment when we don't see the revenue yet. But hearing from people like that saying it's going to get bigger, you got to say, well, we need to continue to trust God and know that, hey, we got some big production coming. We're going to need new equipment. We're going to need better storage and processing facilities and equipment to be able to process all this palm so we don't let it just spoil and waste. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot of investment, but it's necessary for what we have growing on the farm. So we're looking at bigger, probably a new storage or processing building probably in the next year, which will likely cost, we've done estimates, around $30,000 to put up that building. But even smaller items of just materials that workers need that might only end up being $1,000 or $2,000 a year, but getting new rain jackets and rain boots and raincoats and gloves. I mean, all those things add up, but it's necessary during rainy season and things. So there's the little things, but there's also the big things, but we know there'll be more with more production.
Well, we are so excited about the farm and what's happening at the Harbel Farm in Liberia. The way that God has just taken this dream and exploded it into something that we could have never predicted is kind of blowing all of our minds. And if you would like to be a part of the agricultural arm of One Body, One Hope and what's happening at the farm, we would love it if you'd reach out and learn more about our ministry. Thanks so much for joining us.